What's good, YouTube? Y'all know who it is. Mario representing.
Alright, I had to do that. I'm pretty much just showing you guys my squat mobility as someone requested on the JDM page. And I'm going to tell you right now, this might look a bit boring as hell to watch, but I'll kind of just briefly go over as to what I'm doing so you guys can get a better understanding of it. So first off, I just want to say that a lot of my videos, or a lot of my mobility warm-ups, are based off of San Francisco CrossFit. Primarily, if you YouTube San Francisco CrossFit, you'll come across, I believe, his name is Kelly Starrett, and essentially, for the most part, I've been utilizing a lot of his warm-ups before I do, any sort of upper body or lower body day. So for the most part, my lower body is consisted of literally laying on a lacrosse ball, finding some quote-unquote tender spots and just kind of laying on them temporarily. And then later on I will go back and roll over them with the foam roller right behind me. Like I said, this might be extremely dull to watch, but hopefully you guys can get a little kick out of my commentary that I have going on. And I'm not going to lie, if you're doing it right, essentially so to say, it's going to hurt like a motherfucker. So I'm pretty much at this point, once I already actually put the, lacrosse ball on my other hip. I just wanted to record only one side because I figured two would just be boring as shit to watch. So at this point, I'm pretty much redoing the same thing, but with the foam roller. And something I've noticed is that when I start off at my hip and slowly come my way down towards my knee for the most part, I notice I just tend to overall hit any sort of quote-unquote tender spots just way more efficiently, as opposed to if I were to just start rolling on it without really laying or doing anything beforehand. So at this point, like I said, I'm just pretty much laying on there, allowing myself to just, I want to cry at this point, but clearly I'm not since I have the hat on. You guys can't see. Like this if you cry every time. And this is pretty much at the part where I start to slowly get into it. Like, I know it takes forever, but for me, I really like to take my time with my warm-ups. I'm really not a fan of just like rushing. Yeah, bro, I do 2 warm-up sets and I go straight to it. And these people just lack flexibility of any sort. And these are the same people that tend to injure themselves the most often, if you've ever noticed that. So like I said, I'm really rolling into it right now, and at this point, for me to just roll into any sort of tender, soft spots just feels way more efficient, and I really don't feel like I'm wasting my time when I start off at my hip. For my hamstrings, I'm really not that centered on rolling out my hamstrings. I just feel like sometimes it takes me a while to finally get a good spot where I can just lay there. And for the purpose of this video, I will say that I actually do alternate some movements in and out, so if I feel that maybe someday like my hamstrings are aching me a little bit or something, then I'll roll those out. Alright, so pretty much at this point, this is also another, San Francisco CrossFit mobility movement. Also, I believe Sean Bryce also did this movement as well, and some people are kind of asking about it. I was actually doing this movement for some time, to be honest. Essentially what this does for me is that it opens up my hips way more, so I pretty much envision that I'm in the hole for a squat, and that the most important thing you want for a squat is to make sure that your knees are essentially out there, so to say, and also that your hip mobility is just great, because you don't want to feel like you have blocky hips, or how do I better phrase that? Just you're lacking mobility, so when you're in the hole you start aching, you can't really get up, and overall it just tends to be a problem. So for this, I'm pretty much just finding various angles, quote unquote, that work for me so that I can open up and stretch my glute medius minimus at that point. You'll notice my left leg is kind of just like on the wall, looking all fucked up on the side. Otherwise, if I were to have my foot straight up, I'd have to really put it in some awkward position where my lumbar spine is just all the way up there and just looks ridiculous. And I have to say, again, anecdotally speaking on this, I've noticed that when I tend to do a a lot of these warm-ups, over time, my flexibility just seems to increase big time. I mean, I remember before when I was stretching, like, I guess you can say I really wasn't putting much forth effort towards it, but now that I take my mobility warm-ups, you know, as religiously as like my training days, and pretty much I'm like finishing up here my final warm-up. What I didn't realize was that this squat rack had no weight on it. So immediately when I pushed it, you see it moving in the background. At first I was like, okay, gotta set up, and then once I realized it moved, I was like, what in the fuck? I was like, derp. Oh, well, pretty much I just put my foot right there, kind of like on the little side of it, and just made for it. But pretty much at this point, I'm just doing some quote-unquote flossing, as Kelly Starr refers to it as. Pretty much just working on my flexibility here at this point. Usually this is kind of like the final before I really get into my squat routine, so once I realized that I couldn't really set up that well for it because it's not tight enough and overall there's no weight on it, so I just felt really goofy at that point. So this was the final warm-up, where it's just really opening up my hips at this point, so I kind of position myself first in a lunge, just do some various as he refers to it as oscillations, or me just moving back and forth, and pretty much just really focusing on opening up my hips at this point. That's all I'm centered on right now. You'll notice I kind of start getting into some weird positions, but I can link the video on the JDM Fitness page if you want me to. Otherwise, you can YouTube. I believe it's pre-squat MWOD, pre-squat MWOD, and then that should be the first video that pops up. And at first, when I first started doing this warm-up, I won't lie, I felt extremely weird because I never had this flexibility. Before, I couldn't even do that, and then today this was like a test. I was like, holy crap, I am able to just lay in such a position, so that for me felt really cool. And yeah, this is pretty much it, just focusing on opening up the hips, and not really sure what else more to say about that. And then I repeat the same thing on the other side. So by the time you stand up, you should notice your hip feels a bit wobbly. That's usually a good sign for you, at least. That's usually what I shoot for when I finish one side of it. I usually just like do little circles here. I mean, when you were looking at my other leg, you couldn't really see it, but I was doing like little circles, in and out and in. And I guarantee you, over time, if you continuously do this warm-up or a variation of it, you will see improvements in your flexibility, especially when you're doing your warm-up. I think at this point I was like, oh hey, I think I can drop down all the way. Let's see, I don't remember this fully. But I know some people are kind of like against warming up, but I mean, personally, my stance on this is that if you can take if you can go to the gym and spend 90 minutes on your workout and enjoy it, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to spend 15 minutes, you know, pertaining to ligament health, tendon health, overall mobility, flexibility health. And plus, especially when you get into like your warm-up sets, you just realize, wow, this weight feels so light. Wow, I feel loose. And then pretty much you see me doing some like little mimic squats right here. Those are really shitty, but those are kind of just like speed squats for me. And just make sure that I feel loose overall. Alright, and that was pretty much it. So thanks guys for watching. Please do subscribe to the JDM page. All that fun stuff. Thank you guys for watching, and take care.